As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 3 of season 12, and today we're going to be catching up with Alice Hart. Now, after the first episode's coverage of this excellent show, I cannot wait to conclude it, because I think it's been an interesting show. I think it's shown an interesting side of Alice's life, and the fact that she has been abused but also feels like she is the one responsible for her family's death, as well as the fact that she's potentially still being abused, mentally abused in this case, by her own grandmother. And of course it all feels in an act to keep her safe, but also you feel like she is being stifled, kept away from the world, and made to grow up on this farm, not really knowing what an outside life would be. Okay, she's got a little bit of school, but is it enough? But then again, she is surrounded by all these incredible women who she can obviously learn from as well. But anyway, I think we should just get into it. So, thank you for being here, but let's continue with The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart, the miniseries, episodes 4 to 7. Episode 4, River Lily. And so we go 14 years into the future and we meet the adult Alice Hart. She now seems to be around about 26, maybe 24. Obviously we don't know if she was 10 or 12 in the last episode, so we'll say 25 and split the difference. She's frantically searching the room in her grandmother's house and looking for paperwork by the looks of things before she ends up storming out. It seems that she's trying to get away from her grandmother as quickly as possible. She heads off and doesn't leave any sort of information as to where she is actually going. At this point, it just seems like she is just going to drive. She stops off at a truck stop and gets rid of the insignia on the sides of her car. This is advertising the business that she does, which is the same business that her grandmother does. She even scrubs her name off it, so nobody can really identify who she is. While at this truck stop, she sees 2 men abusing a dog, tells them to back off, and then takes the dog into her own care. And she just continues to drive. She carries on driving to a place called Agnes Bluff. Now obviously her mother's name was Agnes, and she is looking for some sort of connection with her mother. Again, she's probably not going to find it in Agnes Bluff, but who knows what she'll find. All she cares about right now is getting as far away from her grandmother as possible, and hopefully with little fanfare she can actually start a new life. However, just as she is pulling into Agnes Bluff, she looks over at the dog, and the dog is not well whatsoever. It seems to be having issues with its bladder, and there is blood in its urine. So she pulls into the town vet, and of course, with her being a young woman and him being a fairly young man and really quite handsome, they seem to have a flirtation about them. Alice says that she's going to stay in town while the dog gets back on its feet, or at least see how it goes, because, well, it's not really her dog, it's just a dog that she picked up on the road. But she wants to look after it. Being someone from a broken family, you want someone to look after. You want someone who you can take care of. And if it's not a someone, it's a something, and in this case, it's a dog. She wants to be kind to animals. Plus, when she was a kid, she had a dog, and, well, we don't know what happened to the dog, but we can assume that it possibly died in the fire. But nothing is said about the dog after everything that happens. She heads out the next day to some local beauty spots, and she meets another man who instructs her of where to go in the area because there are some incredible places that no one really knows about. She says she'll check it out, and eventually, when the dog is all better, she goes and sees the vet. She suggests that maybe he and her go out to this beauty spot and they hang out for a while. As we're seeing all this play out, we're also seeing what actually happened with her. It seems that she has received a letter from Oggy. Now, previously, her and Oggy had become an item. A little bit like Ben from the film It, or the book It by Stephen King, where Ben became very handsome as he got older. The same seems to have happened to Oggy. He was a chubby kid, and he has grown up into what seems to be a very handsome man. And he and Alice have been dating for a while. It seems that they're in love with each other, and they've started planning a life together. They wanted to go travelling, they want to go seeing the world. However, one day, Alice found out that he'd actually been deported. It seems like he and his mother were illegal immigrants. Now, if you don't know what an illegal immigrant is, let me educate you. Because an illegal immigrant is someone who has run past their visa, not someone who has come over on, I don't know, say a small boat. They're asylum seekers, just so you know the difference. But anyway, their visa has elapsed and they are going to be taken out of the country. They're deported back to their homeland, and Alice doesn't even get to say goodbye. She's absolutely devastated by this, because of course she would be, and it seems like her only friend and now her boyfriend has been sent home. She has no idea why. Turns out, however, several years later, Alice manages to get a letter. And in this letter, it is from Oggy. He says that he has written multiple times before, but she's never answered, and he hopes this one finally gets through. The letter that she reads actually tells her that he has moved on. He's married someone else. It's been 5 years, and it's a shame he got deported the way that he did, because it turns out that it was June who actually had him deported, and June has been hiding letters from him for all this time. So this is why Alice has run away. She's absolutely devastated. The man that she loved, the man that she planned to have a life with, is now married with someone else, and Alice just can't understand why this has all happened. It's only because of her grandmother, and she doesn't know why she's done it. So now that Alice is settled in Agnes Bluff, she starts to try and enjoy her life. She starts dating the vet, and the other man that she met out on the trail that day, she'd also had a flirtation with, and turns out that he is part of their group. The vet has a bunch of people that he hangs around with all the time, who all seem to work in the national park there. So this big group of friends accept Alice in. But of course, she can't forgive her grandmother for what she's done, and therefore she won't be going home anytime soon. As for back home, obviously once she leaves, June and Twig all start looking around for evidence of what is going to happen, of where she's going to go. But they can't find anything. They start ringing around trying to find her, but there is nothing that they can work out as to where she's gone. After June ends up having what looks like a heart attack, she ends up in hospital, and Twig goes to visit her. However, while Twig is there, Twig gets a phone call. Now, we saw the phone call happen earlier on in the episode as well, and that phone call went to Sally. Now, we remember Sally and John. At the end of the last time we saw them, they were willing to start trying for a family. And now they have one. They have a 14-year-old boy. This 14-year-old boy, however, it turns out that this is Charlie. Charlie is the 14-year-old child of Clem and Agnes. The boy that they sent off to Sydney, who we thought was going to die, is not only back, but he is not far away from his grandmother, and now lives with Sally and John. He tries to talk to his grandmother when he answers the phone to her, but she's not interested. She only wants to speak to John. She asks if he can investigate where Alice has gone. A couple of days later, because of the dismissive attitude towards her son, Sally ends up getting drunk, and this is where she calls through to June, but because June is in the hospital, Twig answers, and Twig finds out for the first time in 14 years that Alice has her brother. Alice never knew, and obviously everything around June is just so mysterious that she's ended up covering up the fact that she got rid of Oggy, and she's covered up the fact that Charlie is still alive. Alice doesn't even know about Charlie yet, but she certainly knows what happened to Oggy, because she's already spoke to Candy about this. So it's an absolute fucking mess. She has left herself in such a bad situation, by her I mean June, that she's now lost her granddaughter. She is starting to lose the respect of the people around her, including Twig, who cannot forgive her for what she has done. And now we've just got to see how this all plays out. Episode 5, Desert Oak. So since Alice has started to rebuild her life out in Agnes Bluff, she obviously is going to need a job. Now, with the extensive time that she has spent on her grandmother's farm, obviously she's gotten quite used to knowing the flowers. As I've said before, that was part of the way that they made their income, by putting these incredible bunches of flowers together and selling them throughout the town. And so she's got a hell of a background in it. However, she tries to get a job through the National Park Service, becoming a ranger, and she actually has to lie about what's on her CV. She doesn't actually give a resume while she's applying for this job, because she gets the interview through her friends that she met on their night out with Moss. And it seems that everyone is raving about her, including Dylan, who is the man who she met out on that walk. So it seems that everyone has been charmed by her. And throughout the interview, she is just constantly naming flowers and telling the interviewer the basic properties of these flowers. And so everyone is impressed with her. They don't even need a CV, and they believe that she's been to uni to actually learn all of this, so they just give her the job. This means that she's going to end up working with her friend Lulu, who she met on the night out, but she's also going to be working with Dylan, who is the man that she flirted with out on the trail, but is also someone who she's quite clearly attracted to, even though at the time it seemed like she was seeing Moss. Lulu asks her about this later on, and she confirms that her and Moss just didn't work out. There wasn't a spark there, and she just called it off. But since she has moved to these national parks, they end up going into what looks to be like their social housing. So she actually gets a cabin on the site, and she can live there while working for the National Park Service. And she knows where all the other National Park rangers live, including Dylan, the one that she quite clearly fancies. He too knows where she lives, and whenever they are around each other, they are constantly flirting. Lulu seems to take umbrage with this and doesn't really like it. It's as if, even though it seems like she's got a partner, she's constantly got her eye on Dylan. But eventually, after some intense teasing and hanging out with each other, Dylan and Alice end up having sex. They end up then going to parties together, and they are holding hands, and Lulu essentially warns Alice against getting too close to him. Now, since our first meeting with Dylan, I had this feeling that he was going to be integral to the actual outcome of this show, but yeah, he feels there's something not right there. But for now, Alice seems happy. That night, they end up going out to this beauty spot once again, and like I've said before, Alice now knows about Lulu. She feels like Lulu and Dylan have a past, and so she inquires whether he actually ever brought her out here. And this is where we start to see him turn a little bit. He gets a little bit pissed off, he walks off, and he leaves her in the middle of nowhere. She's never been out here before, and he just leaves. Later on, he comes back, and she starts to talk to him about her past. However, she tells him about her father, what she did to him, and how bad she actually felt about it. Because obviously, she ended up killing not only her mother, but her brother as well. Let's not forget, she doesn't know Charlie's alive. But this is giving him an opportunity to see that, I don't like the phrase, but she has daddy issues. And I fear for her in the next episode, because I feel like he is going to manipulate the situation. He has already proven that he is a little bit volatile when he walked off. He could have just sat and talked through the situation, but he didn't. He walked away from it. And it's kind of gaslighty territory, making her feel like she's done a bad thing because she is just inquiring about his life. And he could have said, I just don't want to talk about it. And she would have left it at that. But he didn't. He walked away. He made her feel the more guilty than she actually did for asking the question. We learn more about Candy in this episode as well, and her relationship with Clem way back when. Now, as I said before in the previous episode about this, her and Clem seemed to get on really well. They obviously had this bond together, but I didn't realise the age gap between them. Turns out she was 13 and he must have been a lot older, because they got very close and he ended up having sex with her. Now, as far as I'm aware, it may not have just been sex. This potentially could have been a situation where he ended up raping her. She was a lot younger than he was, so it would have been statutory rape anyway, but there was a lot of chasing around going on and a lot of him trying to catch her. But whether those games ended up being something worse and escalating into rape, we can only infer this. However, the first time it happened, they were caught, and Candy said that it was the worst pain that she'd ever felt in her entire life, but she loved him, and as much as she didn't want it to happen, it happened anyway. June actually found out about this and sent Candy away because she wanted to keep Candy safe. Obviously, she allowed Clem to stay, and this is where she ended up inviting Agnes to come and stay with her. Agnes had lost her mother and needed a place, so she told Agnes to come stay. As soon as Agnes and Clem were in the same vicinity, he was interested. And this is what June had hoped for all along, to be able to keep Candy safe, because she was a lot younger than what Clem was. Clem and Agnes were around about the same age, and so she manipulated the situation to put them together. She knew there was something bad about him, and just basically handed him off to a different woman, so that she could protect Candy Blue. As for Twig, she is pissed off. She is not happy with the way that things went down, and she has left. She obviously knows about Charlie, and she goes to visit him. She goes to explain exactly what happened. He tells her, look, I was receiving letters, and Alice basically said that she had no reason to want to be around me, no reason to want to talk to me, no reason to want to see me. And Twig has to explain that this wasn't from Alice. Alice doesn't even know you exist. She thought you died in the fire. All this time, John is looking for where Alice could potentially be. And instead of telling June about it, they end up telling Twig. Because Twig is going to go, she's going to find her granddaughter, and she is either going to bring her home or she's going to explain the situation, including the fact that she still has a brother. The lies that have been going through this family, and there's still more to uncover, I'm sure, have really made it such an ugly situation that no one can really be trusted. And I think the fact that she's been so protected for so long, and she is looking for someone who will fill that gap of a loving role model or a loving partner, I think Alice has actually thrown herself into a trap. Moss seemed like a good guy, and she got rid of him because she wanted Dylan. And I feel like Dylan isn't the guy that she thinks that he is. Episode 6, Wheel of Fire. So, everything between Alice and Dylan seems to be idyllic. But again, where have we heard that word before? Because the cracks start to show with Dylan. Both Dylan and Alice are asked out on a night out with the rest of the crew. However, it seems that Alice has been kept indoors by her new beau. Because, well, of course she has. They've got into this new relationship and, they're not doing the usual things that they would normally do. They're staying around each other, they're staying in each other's company, and okay, when you get into a new relationship and it's all fresh and new and you just want to be naked half the time and just, doing whatever you're doing, that's all well and good. However, when people start to see that is becoming a pattern and the two of you aren't actually engaging in anyone else's lives, and it starts to become more sinister. Alice asks if they can actually go out that night and enjoy a fun night out together, and straight away Dylan says, well, it's just pathetic what they do. They just go out drinking and it's just pointless. The problem with that is she really wants to go. She says what will be pathetic is if I went on my own. And so Dylan feels forced to go out. And of course, instead of trying to keep his girlfriend happy and just enjoy the night out, I'm sure he'll have an absolute blast when he goes out. He comes home and she is dressed in a sparkly dress. He asks her if it's one of her slutty friend's dresses, Lula's dress actually, and she is obviously upset and hurt by this. He fucks off and slams the door, and that's it. That's their night over. before it's even begun. He begins to make her feel guilty. He makes her feel like she has to tell lies to the crew so that nobody suspects that it was him. And instantly you see the dark and sinister side of him coming through. Anytime he tries to make plans with her, he ends up cancelling them, which means that she can't make plans with anyone else because everyone else is doing things by that point. He's controlling her. He's making sure that she is subservient to him and staying within the house. And that very night, when he tells her that he can't come over until later, she decides to head out with the dog. Once she gets back, he's home, she's excited to see him, and straight away he proves himself to be the person I thought he would be. Pins her up against a wall, throws her to the ground, and walks away. Later on, he tells her that he's sorry for everything that he's done, that it won't happen again, and that it was stupid of him, and he just wishes that men didn't look at her the way that they did, and maybe one day that she'll talk to them and, oh, wow, it was just bullshit. He's such a fucking child. But he decides to continue his violent streak throughout. Anytime that he feels the relationship is threatened, he threatens violence. And so throughout the episode, she's constantly on eggshells. He's either blowing hot and cold with her, or he is ice cold. And as soon as that scowl comes across his face, you know she's in trouble. While they're at work one day, he gets called away for a different job and she has to pair up with another guy. She knows that she's going to be in trouble as soon as she gets back home because she's interacting with someone else. However, while she's out, she ends up having a panic attack and remembers not only her dad, not only the fire, but some of the things that Dylan, has been doing to her as well. Eventually, her partner comes over and tells her to calm down and just breathe through it. He asks if she wants to go back, and she doesn't. She continues the job, and then when she gets back to the station, he just gives her a hug. He makes sure she's okay. But of course, at that point, Dylan sees. He goes home, and you're just praying that she doesn't go there. But of course she does. He ends up accusing her of all sorts of things, and of course he attacks her. He starts to choke her out, and after a moment he stops. He blames it all on her. How dare she be so sexy? How dare she be so beautiful? How dare she be such a temptress? What a fucking moron. And so she has to do something that she didn't think she'd have to in this relationship, and that is defend herself. She grabs the nearest thing to hand and smacks him around the face with it. I'd have kept fucking going if I was her. Before he can actually get to his feet, she remembers something that her grandmother taught her. Whenever you run away from a situation, you don't look back, you just get in the car and drive. It's something that she not only taught her, but actually showed her. The grandmother had taught her how to drive when she was 11, and now that she's 24, 25, whatever it is, she does just that. She runs away. The only problem with the way that she runs is she runs home. She was at Dylan's at that point, and she ends up running home. Stupid, because he's just going to get in his car and come with her. She should have drove to one of her friends and stayed there. They would have seen the injuries that she's got on her face. I mean, she's streaming blood at this point. They would have called the cops. The cops would have come and sorted him out and he'd have been in jail. However, now she's in her own home, she's trapped, and she's seeing visions of her mother telling her to just let him in. Just open the door. The worst will be over soon. The more and more he is out there, the angrier and angrier he's getting. So if you just open the door, it will be over. But she doesn't want to live like her mother did. But now she's trapped in her own home. She's got a man baying for blood outside, and she can't go anywhere. It's unfortunate the fact that she has actually let the one person go who probably would have been able to protect her in this. Because while in town, Twig has actually managed to track Alice down. She hasn't seen her, but Alice saw her. Alice saw Twig. She managed to hide in her truck, and then she contacted Twig telling her, look, don't be here anymore. I don't need you. I don't want you here anymore, and I just want you to go home. Twig, however, has her own journey that she goes on. Twig has an Aboriginal heritage, and she begins to explore that when she meets a woman in town, Mary. She ends up going to their commune and just enjoying a night with them. She finds them at the side of the road after they've broken down, and she gives them a lift back to where they came from. She stays overnight, she has some food, and she just enjoys the night. But while she is there, she tells them stories of her own children, her actual children, who went into the system and she never saw them again. That's why she has been where she is with June, and she looks after those kids like they are her own, because she really missed out on having that. Eventually, Twig actually gets some news about June, and so she decides that she needs to go back home but she leaves Alice a message just saying that everybody misses her and they love her and they would just wish that she would contact them. There's stuff that she needs to know and it can't be just done over the phone. So she gets a chance just to call. However, when this message comes through, she is literally fighting for her life. Speaking of fighting for her life, we go back to Thornfield. Now, I believe I called it Thornwood in the first coverage of this, so it's Thornfield. June is left with Candy and they seem to have reconciled after everything that had gone on before. But June has really progressive cancer. She's not well, obviously, and Candy is looking after her. But June now has a choice. She can continue with treatment or she can just let go of everything. She's got to a certain age where she just feels like giving up would be the best idea right now. She knows that Candy can look after the farm and wait until Twig comes back, and hopefully with Alice. She begins to talk about Clem and how he was conceived. Now she's told everyone throughout that he was born by a guy named Robber Barron. However, that's not true. Robber Barron was actually a woman named Roberta Barron, and it was the first woman that she ever really fell in love with. June had been so happy with her, and one day they were down at the riverside where Alice met Oggy, and while there, 3 boys came over, or 3 men came over. June sacrificed herself and told Roberta to run. Before she could get any further, the boys dragged her back, and they had their way with June. Later on that night, after she woke up because she'd been knocked out, she just lay, waiting because she didn't know if they were going to come back. She waited until morning, and then she went home. Once again, fucking scumbags. After that, she couldn't actually see Roberta again. She ignored her messages and her letters and her calls. She just couldn't do it. After that, she set up the home and she managed to start looking after people. That's when Twig came along, and by this point she'd already had her son, Clem, and she knew from the start that there was something not right about her son, and throughout his whole time there, she worried about him. And she's confessing all of this now because she's dying and she wants to end it. And this is part of the news that Candy ends up giving to Twig, and this is why Twig is now going back home the opposite direction to where she's really truly needed right now, because Alice, again, is covered in blood, is scared in her house, and has a man baying at her door for her. Episode 7, Sturt's Desert Pea. Okay, so we pick up from the next morning, and it seems that Alice has just been sat all night waiting to find out what's going to happen. He seems to have just gone. He's given up the ghost and just left. However, the next morning there's a bang at the door, and of course she's expecting it to be him. She's had phone calls from him, but nothing more. The banging stops, but when it starts again, there is a female voice, and it's Lulu. Lulu comes in, looks at Alice's face, and just is astounded. She can't believe what's happened and is shocked to see her friend in such a way. She was the one who warned about him in the first place, and now seeing her like this is really shocking. She takes photos of it for evidence, and Alice ends up going to speak to the staff member that employed her in the first place. But of course, he's got there first. He's used her past against her and told everyone that she's got a violent past and that she's basically a psychopath. He says everything is on her and he was just defending himself. Because of course, it's always the woman. Absolutely fucking what a joke. What a pathetic piece of shit this man is. And anyone else who does this. Okay, occasionally it may be the woman, but I'd say probably 99% of the time it is the man. And yet, he is the one that is believed. Again, 99% the other way. It's always the man that ends up being believed in these kind of shitty situations where, quite clearly, he is an abusive arsehole. It's clear in his behaviour. Anyone who wants to stand up towards it could have seen it. But why believe a woman? She's just the one there, sat there battered and hurt. Absolutely abhorrent. Alice is basically told to go back to work, and when she does, she ends up blowing up at one of the visitors that is being shown around the park. And of course, everyone films it, and as soon as people see it, they say, oh, well, it's exactly what Dylan said. She's the nut job. She's the psycho. And Alice knows that she's just got to leave. The only people that she can call at this point is her grandmother and her surrogate grandmother, Twig. She does just that, and they come and collect her. She goes home and she feels foolish about everything that happened, but they tell her that they've got things that they need to talk about. They tell her that she's got a brother. They inform her that the brother that they said that died years ago actually hadn't, and that June had kept it from her all this time. Obviously, she's distraught. This relationship that she had has broken up, and now she has found out her grandmother has been lying to her about her dead brother, who is not dead. And so she goes and visits Sally at the library. Sally knew that she was going to be coming by and waits for her. She takes out the book that Alice would always pick up, and she tells her the story behind it. Turns out that Alice's mum had actually been speaking with Sally for a long time about trying to get away from her husband. She'd been writing her notes and putting them in the book. Then when she would take the books back, Sally would understand what was going on. It became a code for them. So Sally knew everything that was going to happen, including that Agnes, Alice and her unborn child were going to run away. She also told them that she knew that they were going to be going to June's, and that is where they were going to seek sanctuary. So all along, Alice was meant to end up there. She just didn't end up there the right way. She recalls the story of what happened to her after she reads the incident report. Turns out that when she set the fire and ran into the house and her dad followed her, he came in, he dragged her out of her bed and he choked her. Eventually Agnes saw that he wouldn't stop. She grabbed a log, she twatted him over the head with it, and then continued to beat his head in. She dragged Alice, who was near lifeless at this point, out of the house, and then went back in and set fire to him. And in all the commotion, she ended up going into labour. Eventually, when the fire department got there and the police got there, they managed to get her to hospital, and obviously she ended up losing her own life. Alice for so long has blamed herself for what happened, and it wasn't her fault. Throughout all of this, we keep seeing June. Obviously, she's having a real tough time of it with the cancer. It's getting more and more progressive, and it's essentially eating away at her. As time gets on and things get worse, she manages to pass peacefully without seeing her granddaughter that one last time. Alice, however, at this point, has been in contact with Dylan. He told her that he missed her, and she said it back. But once again, just manipulation tactics just to get her back there, and then he could do what he wanted. It's a classic technique. They tell you that they miss you, and they tell you that you're the one for them and make you feel special once more at your lowest ebb. And then they bring you back in. Things are fine for the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden, dinner isn't on the table. Something isn't clean properly. Someone looked at you as if you were having an affair with them, and it's heartbreaking. And so she decides to go back to the farm. She obviously doesn't see her grandmother that last time, but she stays there with Twig and the rest of the crew, Candy as well, and she honours her grandmother. And it seems like she is going to be staying at the farm from then on to actually look after all the flowers, which is what June called them, that come into her life. And it will be her legacy going forward as to someone who is going to look after these women. And when you actually see all the good work that June has done, I mean, yeah, she did some bad shit. She did some awful stuff. But she also helped a hell of a lot of people. And all she was trying to do, and all she was trying to do in the other instance, was trying to protect her granddaughter. But June is laid to rest, and the rest of the women begin again and start to live their lives without her. Wow, this was incredible. This was a really hard watch as well, but it was incredible. Such a poignant story to actually watch, enjoy, and work my way through. Just impeccable writing and incredible acting. I don't think I actually said it throughout the episode, but the adult Alice was played by Alicia Debnam Carey. And again, I said it before, she was in the Fear the Walking Dead series, and she was impeccable in that. She was also in Apple Cider Vinegar. And she is such a talented actress. While I was watching the show, I actually thought about the fact that Sophie Turner has been cast as Lara Croft in the TV show. There is a live action TV show. If you didn't know about Lara Croft coming, Sophie Turner is the lead. And just looking at her, Alicia Debnam Carey, I was like, she should have gone for that. Because she is, if it's the young Lara Croft, which I believe it will be, like from the game, the more recent Tomb Raider games, she'd have been an absolute fucking shoo-in for that. She looks very similar to her. She's got a very similar body shape and would have been excellent. And you can say to me all you want that, oh well, we need an English one. Well, Angelina Jolie wasn't English. Alicia Vikander wasn't English. So yeah, I'm pleased that Sophie Turner got it, but watching her in this and knowing that she's been in, survival stuff and, hard-hitting dramas like this, I just think she would have been ideal for it, but what do I know? She wasn't even in the running for it, I don't think. Anyway, I enjoyed this. It was an impeccable show, and it really was interesting to watch. The other thing that I really liked about it is the fact that they used the names of flowers or the flowers to represent certain things. And it helped, instead of talking about things, they would use flowers to say that they were sorry or say that they were emotional or whatever it was. And throughout the episodes, it just kept showing you these different flowers and what they meant. And it was just truly interesting. It was a clever concept to have. And also naming the women as flowers helped with the whole theme around it, the lost flowers. So yeah, it was an interesting show. Really well done. And even though each episode was nearly an hour long and the pace was pretty slow, I didn't feel like it was too slow that it was dragging on. I felt there was enough in it, even though it was a small, isolated story. There was enough little subplots going on around it that made it interesting. And I watched Wentworth when it was out, and seeing quite a few familiar faces from Wentworth as well was really interesting. So that was something nice. It felt comforting in a way. But yeah, this was interesting. This was a really good show. Really emotional, really got you thinking. And obviously, as you can hear throughout, I'm not someone that suffers fools gladly when it comes to things like abusing women and then lying about it. Like, if a woman is being abused, then maybe we need to start fucking looking at the men instead of looking at why they're reporting the abuse. Fucking ridiculous. We've got a fucking shithead in the White House because of women not being able to report against men. So, I love this show. I'm glad I didn't watch it before. I'm glad that it came at a time when I just thought, well, I'm interested in it and therefore I want to watch it eventually. And I was doing this at the time and I thought it would be perfect. It sounds perfect for it. So, yeah, it was a good choice. Very good choice. Even if I do say so myself. But anyway, I'm done for today. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me rant on. And until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome. And I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.